we have a very special interview with a Swiss music producer, DJ and songwriter, Simon Miles, who has carved a name of himself in the global music scene. Headlining across Europe, he has become a fixture in renowned venues, such as the Ministry of Sound in London, Beach Club in Croatia, and the iconic Street Parade in Zurich. Simon's chart-topping single, Keep Moving, not only claimed the #1 spot, but also led to millions of streams. His prowess in the studio extends to an official remix for Grammy Award winner Mitch Wong, showcasing his versatility and music finesse. Simon is a devout Christian and uses his music to evangelize to young people and a secular audience in nightclubs in a very creative way. To give us an insight into his real life, we are now joined by music producer, DJ and songwriter Simon Miles. Simon, how you doing?
All good here. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for joining us on Revelation TV. Now, just Simon, we're going to talk about your music soon, but for the beginning of our interview, just tell us about your childhood. What was it like for you to grow up?
So I grew up in Switzerland, in Bremgarten. That's like in the middle of Switzerland, and I had a really good time with my sister. We grew up in a little town, so we had some landscapes we could really enjoy, lots of nature, but on the other side also it was super close to the city. I grew up in a little church in Bremgarten where we also got baptized later.
What was your relationship with Jesus like as you were a youngster? Were your parents believers? What did God mean to you at that time? Tell our viewers.
So my parents were believers. Of course, they still are. And that's kind of the way how I got to know the Bible and the whole story and evangelism of Jesus. And I think until I was like 15, I didn't really realize what baptizing was. I also always believed in a God, in a living God up there, but not what that would be in a one-to-one relationship for me.
Where was this changing point in your own personal life? It was great that you were brought up in a Christian household, but tell our viewers about that turning point. You mentioned 15 years old, things changed for you. What exactly happened?
I think I simply grew up emotionally, and I started to listen to some different ministries, and yeah, that's where it kind of got that turning point, and I realized I want to get baptized myself.
And what was that feeling like for you when you made that decision? How did you feel?
I would say it almost felt magical. And of course, it was the best decision I could have ever done.
We're going to talk shortly about what Jesus Christ meant to you throughout your adulthood as well, but you're very much involved in music. You're a music producer, you're a DJ, you're a songwriter. Tell our viewers about the music and how did you originally get involved in it? Where did it all begin?
So I started playing the drums when I was 7. Before that, I would use my mom's kitchen pots to play the drums, but that was not how should I say, professionally. So I started taking lessons when I was 7 and initially wanted to become a rock musician, just playing the drums like all the good old rock bands from the 80s. I still love to hear that music, but when I was about 11 or 12, I started getting interested into electronic dance music, and that was completely a new horizon for me. And I decided I would want to give that a try and produce music and later start DJing.
What was the reaction of your parents at the time? When you were growing up, did they always tell you, you need to find a career, maybe become a doctor or a lawyer? What was their reaction like when you said music is where you wanted to follow your path? What did they say?
So of course they were like, okay, get a normal career, something safe. But when I first started out making music, it was just a hobby. And like the complete vision and the dream and the wish to become a music producer professionally and do that for a living, that was later when I was, I would say, 16 or so. And as soon as I finished my apprenticeship, they would let me actually make music.
Wow. And then so you went in from the apprenticeship. How did things develop from there? Did you really feel your passion for music and realize that is the future that you wanted to have?
Absolutely. So the passion got bigger and bigger, and of course I would how should I say? I got into the music scene more and more. So when I started out, I didn't have an idea about what it really means to be a professional DJ. And time after time, I realized and still decided I really want to do that.
So tell us about, give us an insight into music for people of us who may not be familiar or aware of what it really entails. Were you involved in making the music yourself, creating the music, writing all the chords and everything else, performing it as well? What exactly were you doing?
Yes, exactly. So I actually also started to produce music before I started DJing. That's two complete different things. When I'm in the studio making music, that means I would start playing the piano and try out some different chords and melodies. And I always say for myself, when a melody sounds good on the piano, it can sound even better at any sound. So I start messing around, and then as soon as I got something cool, I can put that into my music program and start searching for different sounds and manipulate the sounds. That's the production part of it. And when I have a cool demo version, I send that to singers, and we would then write a song, some lyrics, and some melodies for the vocals as well. As soon as that product is finished, I am able to play that live to a crowd as a DJ.
So tell our viewers, it's important that, I'm talking about the young people watching us today. How important is it that they actually find a passion they have in life and they try and find ways of making that into a career? How important was that for you, that you could have gone a line of maybe your parents said, go into a normal career, study university and use music as a sideline, but you really wanted to do this full time? Why is it important young people find the passion that they love and carry it on for the rest of their lives?
So I think the most important thing is, as long as you do something you love as a job, it never feels like working. Of course, it might be that you do kind of more work than others do, but it's not as hard as a job you actually hate. And on the other side, of course, it's super helpful to find a passion, whatever it is, to serve God. And those two combined really kept my vision going.
It's quite interesting because you're performing this music to a secular audience. So what is it like for you being a Christian as a DJ in a secular environment? How are you able to use it in a creative way to evangelize? Tell our viewers.
So, of course, it is difficult. And I know not a lot of Christians go to clubs, and that's right this way. I think the electronic music especially is a good chance to reach other people, whether that's my music on Spotify and all these platforms, or me as a performing artist in clubs and at festivals. And one way I really like to evangelize, is the one-on-one talk with other DJs, with promoters or party guests, when they realize I do really live my Christian values as someone who is in that party scene. That's an eye-opening moment for others.
It's quite interesting because I've had an opportunity of actually being at one of your events as well. You were performing there. You were performing secular music, but then you just put little messages of Jesus Christ in there as well. Tell our viewers, how are you able to use the technology to just start planting little seeds, small seeds, that people are in the nightclub, they're having an amazing time, but they're all also being evangelized to. Maybe they don't even understand or realize they are as well. Tell our viewers.
I think one way of planting these seeds is, of course, to have a little gospel vocal or a sampled preach in a song. And the modern technology really makes that possible. I really like to mash up songs. That means to have 2 or more songs playing at the same time in a way that sounds good and clean.
Tell our viewers about the power of music, because the power of music is very powerful, of evangelizing, like you said, and it's a creative way of getting the message of Jesus Christ out there to people who would not necessarily walk into a church or hear about Jesus Christ. So for you to do this in such a creative way, can you give our viewers an insight into maybe some of the testimonies or people who have been to your secular event in a nightclub, in a secular nightclub, and they've heard you giving those little messages of Jesus Christ? What's the feedback been?
The feedback was really good so far, especially from the people that really realized I'm doing something more than other DJs are. And since music is universal, even without lyrics, even without singing, just the emotion music can transfer to an ear, to a soul, that's amazing. And as soon as there are vocals with some message, lyrics on top, I think that's super, super powerful. And one testimony I can remember right now, I was at a party and there were super young people and they kind of knew I was the DJ. And as a DJ, of course, you are like a cool person. People, especially younger people, are looking up to you. And we had a really good talk and then started talking about church. And he was like, I think church is boring. I would not want to try it out. But he was a little interested in God. And then I was like, hey, believe me, church isn't boring at all. And we had a really good conversation. And I think he would then go to church, to like a Sunday evening service a few weeks later.
Fantastic. So you were able to plant those seeds. Fantastic. Well done. Now tell our viewers about what is it like being a Christian artist, a Christian DJ, but in the secular industry? Were you concerned of pronouncing your faith in Jesus Christ? Would that affect your career, your music career?
I think it would not affect it, as there are in the pop business also, as well as in the electronic dance music business, there are people sharing that faith. So I'm not the only one. And I always try to wear some Christian merchandise with Bible verses on my back of the t-shirt, for example. And that's a good way to connect with others as well, I would say.
Can you give our viewers any examples of challenging times that you've experienced in your own personal life and how your faith in Jesus Christ has helped you to overcome those challenges?
Yeah, when I was in my apprenticeship, like I mentioned before, my boss was kind of mean and didn't see what I was really doing, didn't see my good work. I did my very, very best, but there was always something wrong, and over half a year or even a bit longer. So that really hurts me, and it wasn't a cool start in the business life, I would say. And in the end, now I can say that really strengthened my faith in Jesus, and I realized I'm never alone. So I didn't always hear I was never alone, but that's the point when I realized it in my own life.
I was going to ask you, for anyone watching today and maybe they've never heard about Jesus Christ before and they're hearing about him for the very first time, how would you explain your own personal relationship with him?
It's, of course, I do really try to honor God wherever I can, but it's really personal, like a good friend. I can talk with Jesus about everything, and he can give me advice for everything as well. Because, of course, he can see the whole picture, the one I cannot. So it's like a good friend, and that's amazing.
Do you at times feel your faith is tested in any way and you sometimes need to reconnect with Jesus Christ? And if you do, how do you reconnect?
Yet there are tests, especially when I think about some things that might happen in the future. But the way to reconnect, I think, is to really slow down things around me and dig deeper into the Bible and listen to worship, pray a lot. I really like to pray on long walks. That's a way I can really reconnect with Jesus.
For anyone hearing about prayer and they're not familiar with it, give our viewers an insight into prayer and how do you personally do it?
I personally pray as well again, like I would talk to a good friend. I'm talking about what I'm thankful for. I'm talking about things I would wish that would go different. I would talk about my sorrows and also just have a chat, actually.
We hear about mental health and so many people experience mental health during these days. Is it anything that you've experienced in your own personal life, whether it's your personal life or in your career in any way?
Not too hard, thank God. But of course, especially as an artist, where you compare yourself to others a lot, mental health definitely is a topic, an important topic. And I think that was about 1.5 years ago when I had like a little writer's block. So I wasn't as creative as usual. That's where I had some troubles with my mental health. But again, slowing things around me down and reconnecting with Jesus really helped me there.
Just tell me, you're writing music. Sometimes you might be on your own writing this music. Is mental health affected in that way as well? You've just mentioned about getting that mental block, but how do you keep yourself motivated to keep going, especially as being a music producer at times? I know you can sometimes perform with other artists, but at times you could be just stuck in a room on your own as well. How do you keep that motivation?
I think what motivates me a lot is to watch concerts from other DJs. Whether that's them playing my music as well or just music that inspires me in general. And of course, nowadays you have a lot of sets from other DJs on YouTube, or you could go to a festival nearby and watch another DJ. That's one way I can really motivate myself.
You're constantly also traveling around the world and visiting different countries and performing in different countries as well. Tell our viewers about, do you ever suffer from loneliness in any way? Are you ever difficult to keep relationships or friendships as well because you are traveling so much?
So thank God I'm not always traveling alone. I do have a tour manager who's with me a lot, not all the time, but I think while touring, that's a little easier to have my tour manager, who's also a good friend, at my side. But in personal life at home, it's of course difficult. Some birthdays, some weddings, or other events from my family, I cannot attend them. And that's one point of missing out. And I'm really a family person, so that sometimes hurts. But of course, on the other side, I have more time during the week to spend time with my family and friends. And that's super, super valuable.
At times when you're actually producing this music and you're writing this music, you're very much working so hard and you could be in a room for maybe hours. I don't know, you tell our viewers, you could be in there for maybe days as well. How do you work with this in the way of burnout and not working too hard?
I think that would be the same I said before, it doesn't feel like work. That's a good thing and a bad thing at the same time. So that means I can do more work in little time, but I don't feel, or I don't always realize when I'm in the studio locked up for 8 hours. And sometimes that means I forget to have dinner because I'm so inspired and absolutely in my zone. And I think trying to realize that how much time I spend in the studio is really helping me. And I try to have Sundays off as well for church and for my family and friends. And that's the way I slow down my personal life.
We were talking earlier about mental health, and it's something that most people experience as well. But I want to talk a little bit about the mental health of the young people especially. And I think you're very much involved in the young environment and you see a lot of young people as well. What do you make out of social media and the way that teenagers today, they're constantly on the mobile phone, on Instagram, they're comparing their lives to other people and such things. What do you make about this, the mental health of young people, and how can we help those young people?
I think it's important for young people to understand that the real life is happening away from the smartphone and TVs. The real life is happening outdoors. The real life is happening in families and friend circles. And I do have to say, social media can be amazing to connect with people, to get to know more whatever that's culture, music, sports, whatever, or even share Bible verses. But as you said, social media boosts the comparison between different people, and that's something really hard. And that's why I would recommend young people to stay off their phones as soon as they got up in the morning, and only like use social media after their morning routine, because in the morning everyone is getting set up for the day, and the thoughts should not be on social media. That's one way I also do it. Sorry.
You also talked about the importance of family, and I think the problem we have with social media or mobile phones and smartphones, I think we're losing the fact of families coming together and maybe having dinner together in the evening, and maybe the children are in the bedroom and the parents are in the lounge and everybody is disconnected. And even thinking of the way that media is today, before we used to have only a few channels on the television a few years ago, and everybody would get together, they'd all watch that same program together, but now you've got Netflix and Amazon and all the different facilities available. It's kind of disuniting people as well and separating them. How can we bring the family back together?
I think it's really cool when a family shares a passion, whether that's a sport or a musical program. It should not always be on TV, but I think to have those deadlines where everyone needs to put away their phones, and when you simply have dinner together without any media, I think that's one way for families to reconnect.
I think that is so very, very important, is making that effort as well, because we can easily pick up our phone or see a notification, you're constantly replying, but putting that time and even just turning the phone off or putting it in a different room so you can have that quality time with your family. Now, I know Jesus Christ is very much close to your heart and to your life as well. How do you honor God in your success, knowing that He has put you where you are today and that He has that plan for your life?
There are different ways of honoring God. And of course, I know I'm not perfect. I also do mistakes, and sometimes the Holy Spirit is talking to me, you could have done that differently. But I try to point to God when people talk to me about my success. When people are like, wow, you achieved so much at a young age. I'm like, thank you, but I didn't achieve that myself. God has put me in this position, and without God, I would be nothing. Yeah.
Wow, well said. Can you tell our viewers, you're very much involved also in the secular industry, you work with other musicians as well. How are you able to use your opportunity of evangelizing to those other musicians as well? Apart from the crowds and the hundreds of people or thousands of people in the gigs, but what about those musicians that you're working with as well?
So that works the best when I'm included in the writing process of the lyrics. Sometimes, of course, I work with Christian singers, maybe even worship singers. But if I'm not, in this case, I really like to talk about some deeper topics and share my faith with the artist first. And if they're not up to writing a Christian song, I at least try to bring some more value and some morals to the song. That's a really cool way to get into really, really good conversations with the artists.
Imagine there's a viewer watching us today. They're going through a crossroads in their life. They've got no hope. What message of hope can we give to them today?
People are not alone. You have to maybe cry to Jesus, but Jesus can hear you and wants to tell you you're not alone. He is in this situation with you, even if you don't feel it at the moment, but you have to trust and waiting. That can be really, really hard, but it's worth it to put that trust in Jesus, and maybe sooner, maybe later, you will realize you are not alone.
And what about the way that we can be using music to reconnect with Jesus Christ as well? Worship music. How important is that we have that in our lives, as well as the Bible and the scriptures, listening to devotionals, but also music, the power of music? Tell our viewers.
I think especially worship, and whether that's dance worship with some electronic elements or the classic worship we know playing from bands, or even just the piano and the choir, I think worship has something magical about it, because we honor God at the same time where we, how should I say, fill ourselves up. And I think that's one of the most magical things about worship.
Fantastic. I want to say Simon Miles, music producer, DJ and songwriter, thank you so much indeed for joining us on Revelation TV. God bless you, brother.
Thank you so much for having me. God bless.